Hello, everyone. Welcome into Yelling from the Couch. I'm Brent Humphreys, and returning this week, Gene's got picks. Welcome back in, Gene. Good to have you back.
I'm glad to be back. We got a lot to talk about since I've been on last time.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things been going on, I guess, right?
A lot this NFL season has been pretty successful.
Oh, the first week already, and there is plenty to talk about.
Yeah.
So let's get right into it. Let's start out with the best thing we've seen from the past week and the worst thing. I will let you go first.
Are we starting with the worst or the best?
Whichever one you want to start with.
I'll start with the worst because usually people like to hear the bad news before the good news. I don't know.
Exactly.
I don't know if or follow UFC at all, but Israel Adesanya had fought Sean Strickland, and I mean, going into the fight. Israel Adesanya was like a minus 600 or minus 700, which is pretty crazy in the MMA world. And he basically lost 4 rounds to one in that fight against Sean Strickland, who's not known to be necessarily a power puncher or anything, but he gave Izzy some fits, and he clocked him in the first round, and from there the fight was completely turned up upside down from there, and that was probably one of the worst things I've seen because I'm an Izzy fan. So seeing a guy who I look is probably one of the best strikers in this current era of UFC to basically get beat by a boxer doing his 1-2, I would have to say that's probably one of the worst things I've seen last Saturday.
Yeah. I seen where he was the heavy favorite. I follow, a little bit. I don't, watch all of it. But I
Hmm.
seen where he was the favorite and then he got like upset. Like you said, he was a huge favorite, like minus 600.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess it just take what one punch. Is that what it was? And then he kind of
I
knocked
mean,
him. I mean,
that one punch. I give him his props because I would have probably sat down and been looking for a doctor. But I mean, that was an upset for the ages. This whole year kind of been an upset. Been a bunch of upsets in MMA.
yeah, I seen. I think it was just a couple of days ago. They had the merger, the UFC WWE merger.
Yeah,
So yeah, that's
it
about
was
all I've got on that.
like that.
What was it?
I think the company that merged them together was like Endeavors or something like that.
Yeah,
I'm not.
yeah, Endeavor. But yeah, well, that'll be interesting to see how they work together there. Real fighting and
Like,
choreographed. Yeah. So I will go now, and I will go with my. I'll start out with my best. I'll go. I'll go positive to start with.
okay.
And as far as my local teams, there's not a whole lot of positive, but best thing that I saw in the last week is football is back for the next 4 months.
Yes.
Most of the week we're going to have football, at least Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and soon enough, when Maction kicks in, we'll have it every day. Uh,
Yes.
and lots of entertaining football this past weekend. That's the best thing that I've seen so far. Is just football's back. I mean, you got to celebrate that, right?
I mean, like you said, Max and people sleep on the Mac because you can actually find some good games on those Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday nights.
Oh yeah,
Um, definitely one of my favorite schools in the Mac is Ohio Bobcats. I don't know why. I think they have a quarterback. I forgot his name, and better or something. I forgot his name. I have to go back and look. But the guy was a monster last year, and I'm a gambling guy, so he was
right.
covering a lot of spreads for me last year.
That's it. On the Tuesday nights, you could sit and you could watch some action, and like you said, you've got you put something down on it, and you can you know just enjoy Tuesday night football.
Yeah,
It's
you can
great.
beat up on the show.
Uh, I and so now we'll go on to your best, and then I'll give my worst. I'm pretty sure one of two things is probably going to be your best, but I will let you go ahead and give your best if you would, Gene.
I think it's a no-brainer. What I'm going to say my best thing of last week was my Dallas Cowboys showing up to MetLife and basically giving them a back home butt whooping. I mean, 40-0 week one. Are we serious? Like, I'm watching it with my family, and like, the whole time we're like, okay, let's not, start celebrating. It's 26-0 at half. Like, we know how NFC East football get, or just football in general. The team can go up, three touchdowns, and you come back in the fourth quarter, and the opposite team that was down wins by 1 point or something. So to see that game go 26-0 at half, and then I mean they just showed no life in the second half of the game, and then you keep Daniel Jones out there to just get killed in the fourth quarter, and it's bad weather. Yeah, it was just a bad look for New York Giants. But as far as me and my Cowboys and my other fellow fans, we're on cloud nine right now. I must say it on this pod. The Cowboys are going to the Super Bowl. I have to say it.
Man, they looked like a Super Bowl team the other day, especially that defense. I mean, what, like, how many turnovers did they have against? I mean,
I know for sure they had the block field goal and then they had the pick six. Um, they had like 7 sacks on Daniel Jones. Like that's what kind of like surprised me. 'Cause I knew we was gonna be a great team that can get after the quarterback, but 7 sacks in week one is pretty crazy. And Michael Parsons, I mean,
oh
that
man.
guy's awesome. That guy, we really got lucky when we drafted him because everybody just thought he was an off-ball linebacker. Turns out this guy might be the best pass rusher in the next 5 years.
Yeah, he is unbelievable out there. And as somebody who played a little fantasy football and was going against the Dallas Cowboys this week, yeah, it was not pretty for my fantasy football team, a la the Dallas Cowboys. But man, I mean, the offense for Dallas, I mean, didn't do a whole lot, but they didn't need to do a whole lot. I mean,
Yeah,
the defense did most of the damage. Uh,
yeah, it's still a lot of questions for the offense, I would say. And then Brandon Cooks has a sprained MCL, so it's still a lot of questions I have for the offense as well. But Dak has been, uh, with the Cowboys for a while now. He knows the offense. I think they know what Dak do really good and what he don't do good. So I think they can keep, everything in order and keep everything afloat. When you have a defense like that, you don't have to go out your way and score 30, 40 some points every week. You just got to make sure you give yourself a shot and make sure you give defense a breather here and there during the games.
yeah, and you don't need to show a whole lot on offense if the defense is doing. I mean, no need to open up the playbook when you're already up 26 at the half,
Yeah.
and the other offense hasn't even scored. It was very impressive. So,
Yes,
with you going off your best, I will go on to my worst thing that I saw last week. I could go a couple different directions here, but after Sunday, I have to go with the Bengals' awful showing in Cleveland against the Cleveland Browns.
yeah.
Now, I thought Cleveland would win this game. I predicted a Cleveland win on this podcast last week because the starters didn't play any snaps in the preseason, but I never thought they would go up there and get embarrassed. The offense couldn't move the ball, couldn't get into any rhythm. Joe Burrow was 14 of 31, 82 yards. 82 yards.
Yeah, that's sad.
And, Jamar Chase had 5 catches for 39 yards. T. Higgins had 0 catches for 0 yards and was only targeted. He had a few targets, but they just couldn't connect. And
Yeah.
then Jake Browning comes in the fourth quarter to mop up for Burrow, because at that time, what's the point in leaving him out there? Just an absolute embarrassment for the Bengals at the first game of the season. Cleveland has Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals number, and it stinks.
Yeah, that game was a bit of a heartbreaker because I was siding with the Bengals all the way. I don't know why I had a feeling that Joe Burrow heard all the news about him and his injury situation. I just felt like he was gonna come out there and you know throw for 300, 400 yards and show guys or show the people why he's this high value quarterback. I still think he is. I don't think this one game, is going to define the season, or I will hope that this one game doesn't be the reason why later on in week 16, 17 to decide playoffs. But it was definitely not the start you want. I have a question. So with Joe Burrow, like, do you think it's mainly he's still bouncing back from the leg injury, or it's just the lack of reps with his guys? Because I mean, he didn't play. He basically was there for like the first week of training camp, and then he was out with his injury, and then he basically sat out until the first week of the NFL season, right?
Yes, I believe it was the third day of training camp. He went down with a calf injury. I
Yeah,
think that it's kind of a combination of both. I think he's probably recovering back from that calf injury. But last year, he set out the preseason. So did Chase, Mixon, Higgins, all those guys. And it was a slow start. Lost to Pittsburgh the first week, and Pittsburgh wasn't a very good team last year. They were 500 at best. We
yeah,
should have won that game. And then go to Dallas, Cooper Rush. Dallas wins on last second field goal. And then they finally get going in week 3. But, that's preseason games right there. By week 3 of the preseason, they're playing a half and getting in the rhythm ready to go for the season.
yeah.
I understand why he didn't play this preseason, but at the same time, their starters could have played, but it's just it's the same thing every year with Burrow and starting off on the preseason and then starting slow in the season and getting it going. I think he'll get it going, but it's going to be a week or two before he gets it to being Joe Burrow. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I mean the schedule being with y'all being in the AFC, the schedule is not like you have to now see the Ravens next week
Yeah.
after a smash mouth game with Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
It does not get easier as the season go on, but that's why when you have a guy like Joe Burrow, everything goes out the window. You have a guy, so it doesn't as long as Joe Burrow can get in rhythm with his guys. I mean, I think that game. That's for a coach. Like you watch that game one time and you just never go back and look at it again because that's
Mm-hmm.
not Joe Burrow. So there's really no point in really dissecting that game. Once it gets, like you said, to week 3, 4, 5, that's when we know. That's when we usually see Joe Burrow in his rhythm with Chase. T Higgins didn't even have a catch, right? Like,
No catches.
like, like we can't. Those are rare games where your top guys are not your top guys, and I the Ravens game. I don't know if we're gonna talk about that later in the pod, but the Ravens game, I don't know if they win that one because that's a tough game.
It
Uh,
is.
I mean, defense in that game is gonna be definitely something to look out for. It, the Ravens are not a pushover, definitely with all the new weapons they have on offense. So it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, since you brought it up, Bengals play the Ravens this Sunday in Cincinnati, and Ravens had a pretty dominating performance on defense last week against C.J. Stroud and the Houston Texans.
Yeah,
Uh, they also had some key injuries on offense. J.K. Dobbins went down, torn Achilles, out for the
yeah,
season. Ronnie
that's
Stanley, offensive lineman, he suffered an injury. So they're going to be without some key pieces on offense. But Lamar Jackson is 6-2 in his career against the Cincinnati Bengals.
mm,
Joe Burrow, it's his second game, after the preseason and all that. I think the Bengals will play better. I don't know if the Bengals will win Sunday because it's a tough matchup once again.
Yeah, definitely. The J.K. Dobbins situation sucks because you hate to see a guy who's not only a running back and they're already trying to push running backs to the back of the room on getting paid, but
Mm-hmm.
you feel for a guy that's going through a situation like that, tearing Achilles after I think he either tore his ACL the year
Yes.
before, and then Staley. I mean, that's a tough situation too because the Bengals D line will get after Lamar um, if they don't have their premier tackles out there. But like you said, I don't think Joe Burrow necessarily has as worse of a game that he had last Sunday. Um, I think if you're the coach or the offensive coordinator, you gotta at least put him in situations where he can just get the ball to his playmakers, whether it's slants or it's a curl route or just a crosser route, like something to get the ball in his playmakers' hand and let them work. Because yeah, he got to get that rhythm, that confidence going that he wasn't able to get in preseason. A lot of the games in week one were kind of glorified preseason games because like in modern NFL, a lot of starters don't play in the preseason anymore. So
Yeah.
it's going to be interesting to see how the coaching staff scheme after a game like they had against Cleveland.
Yeah. I'm going to chalk it up to Burrow had a pretty big week, right? Like leading up to week one. Uh, he signed the biggest NFL contract in NFL history.
Yeah,
And
that
then he
boy
goes
got
out. Yeah. He goes out and plays against the Cleveland Browns, who the Cleveland Browns, for some reason, has Joe Burrow's number. I'm just going to chalk it up to a bad matchup against the Cleveland Browns and just move on from there. But hopefully this week he can get back into a rhythm because you don't want to start out 0-2 in that AFC North division right off the bat like that. So we'll see if they can do it. Hopefully they can. Uh, Also Sunday, another big game coming up. The Your Dallas Cowboys, they got the New York Jets, the Aaron Rodgerless Jets, as Aaron Rodgers tore his Achilles on the fourth play of the game and is out for the season. Now, I I missed that game because my wife wanted me to set up Max for her so she could watch diners, drive-ins, and dives. So by the time I turned it on, Zach Wilson's in the game, and I'm like, what happened? And then I see afterwards, and it's like, oh man, that's not good.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a curse at MetLife, but the turf undefeated because they've had so many injuries on that field. Um, and I mean, I wouldn't just say I'm an Aaron Rodgers fan because I've been a Cowboys fan my whole life, and
Mm,
basically my whole childhood, Aaron Rodgers has ruined. Whether we're in the playoffs trying to make a run, and then we have to see Green Bay. You know,
yep.
Rock always has been the demise of my Cowboys. But as a like as somebody that enjoys watching the game, I didn't want to see Rodgers go out like that. And rumor has it that he's not going to retire or that he's going to see it through with his rehab and everything and try to give it one more run. But at almost 40 years old, I
Yeah.
mean, a torn Achilles is not something that you want to be dealing with, at the tail end of your career. Definitely when
No.
you already had a Hall of Fame career. It's not like he has anything to prove to anybody else. It sucks though. It was the vibes is good. I was watching it from the beginning, and he came. It was 9/11. He ran out with the flag. The MetLife was going crazy. And you notice from the very beginning that, oh man, this O line just cannot hold a block, and Rodgers is running for his life, and like you said, fourth play, it's all said and done.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not the hugest Aaron Rodgers fan, but I I respect his play. And with Hard Knocks, watching Hard Knocks, he was pretty entertaining. On Hard Knocks, they focused a lot on Aaron Rodgers coming to New York and being the quarterback that this team needed to go with that defense. And for that to happen the first drive of the season for the Jets, I mean, poor Jets fans, right? I mean, you got to feel for them. I mean, they thought they
Yeah, no,
had a quarterback finally, and it's snatched away from them at the beginning of the season.
I mean, talk about not being able to catch a break. Like the whole offseason, they were celebrating like they won the Super Bowl already when they got Rodgers. Like they was
Yeah.
making T-shirts and like they was excited for him. And it's kind of tough because now that you know Zach Wilson is most likely gonna have to be the guy for the rest of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Did he learn much while Rodgers was uh, with him in the QB room? Like, was he coaching him up much that would really change his game that much? The next season, the case is out. I'll give him his props though for Zach Wilson. I give him his props when he did get into the game. He didn't just look to make the big play. He made sure he passed it to the open guys. He just did what he needed to do to keep the chains moving, and he kept his defense in the game, and that overtime punt return that was complete like a movie. Like yeah, I didn't think the Jets would even sniff a close win against the Bills after Rodgers going down.
Yeah, I thought no shot either, and that was like one of the most exciting finishes to a football game. And we're only in week one of the NFL season, and with Zach Wilson, with that defense, you can only hope that, like you said, he's learned a little bit from Rodgers and go out and just manage the game. You've got Dalvin Cook, you've got Brees Hall, and last year before Brees Hall went down, the Jets were playing pretty well, pretty good. And then he went down with his injury. But if he can come back, and be healthy, and Wilson, plays like, he did Monday night, the Jets, it's not Aaron Rodgers, but they can be, a playoff team. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, the I mean, beating the Bills, I now have questions on the Bills because uh Josh Allen turning the ball over I think three times, two interceptions and a fumble late into that game.
Yeah, I think
That's
it
a
was
big question.
4.
Oh, yeah, that's a big
Yep.
question mark because you kind of got to take the good with the bad with Josh Allen. He I think also still has like the most touchdowns since 2020 as far as the quarterback. So you got to take the good with the bad, but I mean, golly, you're playing a backup quarterback, and basically all the momentum, all the life was sucked out at MetLife after Rodgers went down. Like
Oh
you
yeah.
gotta win that game. So I got some question marks on the Bills and that whole division. The Patriots don't look too bad either. They had a pretty close game with the Eagles. That whole division is stacked. Because then you have the Dolphins. Like that whole division is stacked. So you can't lose a game like that against the Jets with no Rodgers. Like that was the game you needed. And it's going to be an interesting year for that division, top to bottom.
And the Patriots, when they was down 16-0 to the Eagles. I was thinking they're dead in the water. There's no chance. And then they come back and they have a shot to win it, in
Yeah.
the fourth quarter. And, the Eagles hang on. And then, like you said, Miami and San Diego, or I keep saying San Diego, but it's the LA Chargers. What a
Yeah.
game, right? I mean, Tua and Tyreek, and I mean, how are you going? Is anybody going to stop Tyreek Hill this year?
I don't think so.
It's a tough,
I
tall
don't,
task. But yeah, so that's kind of a little bit of you know I feel bad for Zach Wilson next week against that Dallas defense. Uh,
man.
and that offensive line, if they couldn't block last week against the Bills, they're going to have a very long day against the Dallas Cowboys next week, I think.
I would agree with you. Zach Wilson may have been able to get out of that game with Buffalo and for the win, but Dallas is a different monster. And I looked at the total before we had hopped on the pod. I think if I remember correctly, it was like 38. So like they expect it to be a very defensive game. Um, and I mean, I would bet on my guys to win that if we're expecting a defensive game because at the end, I have more faith in Dak and his ability than I have
Yes.
faith in Zach Wilson's. Even though Zach Wilson is still a very talented quarterback, it's just the whole can your team buy into you? Because that was Rodgers. They bought into Rodgers quick. As soon as they got him, like, he's our guy. When you have Zach Wilson, it's not the same situation. I, I just think with the Cowboys at home opener, it's going to be loud. It's going to be a tough outing for Zach Wilson. I still think their defense keep him in the game. It might be like a 2024 type of game, I think, but you're seeing Michael Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, and it's other guys that not many other fans who know outside of Cowboy fans like Doris Armstrong that those boys are coming after you every play. Definitely if we have a lead, they're rushing a lot of guys.
I see it being like a 13-10 game. I mean, I see like all defense in this one because I mean the Jets have got a heck of a defense too. I mean, but it comes down to who has the better offense, and right now it is the Cowboys because I trust, like you said, I trust Zach. Or I trust Dak more than I trust Zach.
Yeah.
It's easy to get confused there.
I think the first offense to make a mistake is going to be the team to lose the game. That's that type. It's that type of game. Like if Dak, because the case is still out for Dak. He can't throw 15 interceptions this year.
No,
They didn't
and
bring Trey Lance here just to start a daycare. They brought Trey Lance here to possibly, run the franchise for the next 4 or 5 years. So Dak still has to, like you said earlier, the offense didn't do much. So Dak still has to go out there and show why he's the franchise guy. And I would hope it's not 13-10 because that would be a tough watch.
and you know everybody focuses on Sauce Gardner for the Jets, but Jordan Whitehead had picked off Josh Allen. All three of his picks were to Jordan Whitehead.
Yeah.
I was Josh Allen. I might have been like, all right, I'm not throwing to that side anymore. But then you got Sauce Gardner on the other side. I guess that's what caused him to keep throwing over there. But
Yeah, I mean,
just go ahead.
I'm sorry. I don't get how after because Sauce may have been across Diggs for most of the game, but yeah, I'm throwing it. I at least got to throw it to Sauce side one time after a guy gets two on.
Yeah, yeah, three. I mean, the guy's probably got his most of his interceptions all out in the first game already. For defense. But you mentioned Trey Lance traded to the Cowboys. When I heard the news, I thought of you, and I was wanting to get your thoughts. What do you think about that trade?
It's interesting because Jerry Jones is always wanting to be talked about. That's it's like he just can't get enough about first take or anybody on ESPN talking about his Cowboys. But
Jerry,
I think it
Jerry.
makes sense. I think it makes sense because if we don't know if Dak is the guy, if we get to the division round again and we lose to the 49ers, when do you just have to cut ties with Dak? When do you have to just say, all right, this guy can't get done for us. We've tried it many, many times. Why don't we, give a guy who, when he was drafted, people had very high expectations. He was a top 3 pick.
Mhm.
And, I like the trade. We didn't give up much, really anything. Uh, so I don't think it's going to be necessarily a distraction this year. But once it gets to next offseason and deciding on if we made it to the conference or Super Bowl or we just stayed in the division and lose out in that round, it's going to be a lot of noise on what to do with Dak, and will Trey Lance take the reins on being the Dallas Cowboys' future.
So when I first heard it, and I thought, I was wanting to get your thoughts on it, and I was sitting there thinking, I think this is a great trade for the Cowboys. Like you said, you're giving up nothing, but basically for a former top 3 pick just 2 years ago. Hey, what if he
Yeah.
does develop and he comes in and he's what everybody thought he was? San Francisco give up the Cowboys did. So I love the trade
Yes. Yeah, they
because it's
gave
a
up
no
a
lose
lot.
situation. Yeah.
They traded like 3 first-round picks.
Yeah, a couple of seconds or thirds, something like that. It was a crazy trade. And the Cowboys didn't give up much for it. So I really liked that pick. I thought that it was a good pickup right there.
A side note, I noticed y'all picked up our guy Will Greer. Hey, you know, give him some reps. I seen Jake Browning came into the game. Give Will Greer some reps. That's a Cowboys legend.
He's definitely a Cowboys preseason legend, isn't he? And I was hoping he would play, because I liked what I saw out of Will Greer. And, between him and Jake Browning, I guess Jake Browning knows the playbook better and's been there longer. And maybe Will Greer will step up into getting that backup position. We'll have to wait and see on that. I like the pick up there, too. He's better. He
Yeah,
was upgraded for Trevor Siemian for sure.
definitely.
So we talked a little NFL here. Before Sunday, I had a worst of the week already lined up, but then Sunday happened, and that automatically took over. But you also had a pretty good Saturday night as well. Uh, your Texas Longhorns
Oh
roll
yeah.
into Tuscaloosa, and they beat number 3 Alabama 34-24. You must have loved that one, right?
Yeah, that was. I mean, it was a nail biter all the way to the fourth quarter, and then Texas just opened it up on offense. That was probably one of the games where you watch and you're like, I can't. I was watching as a fan, but I couldn't get excited even when we had the lead because this is Alabama and we're in Tuscaloosa. Like
Mm-hmm.
the story it's always, the story could be Texas is back and this and that, but Alabama has been there, done that, I would say. And to go out there and see those boys fight every down. And our trenches, I mean, that was another question I had. Will our O line keep up and keep Quinn off the ground? And it was a bit crowded, but Quinn is a playmaker. He got it done, and I'm sure a lot of Alabama fans are pretty upset with the quarterback. But I think it's still more issues as more than just the quarterback. He did miss some throws, a lot of throws actually, but I think they have a lot more questions to be asked as far as the scheming because you got to put your guy in a situation that if he can't make these throws that you're trying to uh, force him to make, you got to put him in situations where he can't succeed. And Texas caught him on a good day.
Yeah, and like last year when Alabama went to Texas, Texas had Alabama down, and
Yeah.
Quinn Ewers went down. And this year, and Bryce Young actually won that game for Alabama. Like, he took over and did what
Yeah.
Bryce Young did in college. This year, they don't have Bryce Young. You know, Jalen Milroe is no Bryce Young yet. He could develop into it. I'm not saying he's not, but right now he's not there. And Quinn Ewers played the whole game. And you see what happened there. And it was a very impressive game for Texas. You know, you thought maybe they're coming to play Alabama. They're going to get a taste of what the SEC's like. And they brought it to Alabama. And 10-point win in Alabama, at Alabama, like you said, they are still Alabama. Impressive.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still on cloud nine because, like you said, that was Saturday and then Sunday night. Like, I mean, Texas sports fans and the Rangers started going on the winning streak in baseball. So, like, Texas sports fans, we're living good right now. We're living
Yeah.
good. The vibes.
Yeah. Great weekend for Texas. We'll see if they can do it again this weekend. So my Saturday, my Kentucky Wildcats welcomed in the Eastern Kentucky Colonels. This is a game to get everything right and, show your offense, have fun, get your backup QB in, get some reps and playing time, just beat down little team from down the road here. And, everything's no, it didn't happen. 27-16 over an FCS school that got beat down the week before by Cincinnati 66-13. And then they come
Man.
into your place and you only win by 11. Very disappointing game. The offense was just horrible. Leary was off at the first half, and he come back in the second half, and he played okay. He did the same thing the first week, but they've got to get it going, man. You're going to run out of these cupcakes here pretty soon, and it's going to be SEC time, and you've got to prove something in that league. I don't know if
Yeah.
you caught it or not.
I caught a little bit of it as far as highlights. I didn't catch the full game, but I remember a while back I had text you. It was week one of or I had DM'd you. It was week one of college football, and I was asking you who to look out for. You said you mentioned your quarterback and running back, and I still have high hopes because from what I was seeing, I mean he's a very uh he can get the job done for you. But like you said, it's the SEC. So if we're struggling against teams like this who we should be beating by 50, what is it gonna look like when we have to see the dog of the SEC? Like, you
Yeah.
gotta I'm not saying you gotta blow out every team that's beneath you. It's I'm sure the other team that they practice just as hard,
Yeah.
but You know, I don't know if you have another game. I don't know what's the schedule for you guys. If you have another, like FCS game, or if, when you start your conference. But before you start conference, we need to see what Leary can do. Like we need a game where he can throw for 300, and 4 touchdowns, and see and build the confidence. Because if you going into the SEC and you like, oh man, I don't have much faith and what we're about to call, or if I can make this play, then you're probably not going to have much success. You're going against guys who are basically uh, NFL players. Like the SEC is full of NFL talent, and you will get exposed off the first kickoff. Like so, I don't know how soon in the season we need to panic, but only winning by 11, like you said. It's a bit disappointing to say the least.
Yeah, I was very disappointed offensively. The running, they couldn't get the running game going, the passing game. I mean, it was just all game long. But we'll just see how hopefully they can get things turned around on Sunday uh, at the UK football facility. Their offensive coordinator, Liam Coen, had a medical episode, according to the University of Kentucky. and he spent a couple of nights in the hospital. I don't know if his stress got to him or what, but Mark Stoops announced yesterday, I think, that Coen is actually going to call the offense from the field this Saturday. So it's kind of a scary situation there, but I'm glad to see that he seems to be okay. And I just, hope and pray everything's good with his health first and foremost.
Yeah, yeah, you definitely don't want to see you know, anybody deal with those any health conditions, mental condition. You know, I hope all is well. Because at first is about taking care of your family and yourself, and football comes second. So if he's able to come back out, it seems like everything should be pretty good for him. But it should always uh, be taking care of yourself and your family and making sure everything's okay with you, and then football can come second. But if he's going to be back on the field calling plays, I hope the stress doesn't get to him, because I mean this is going to be a roller coaster season, and you want everybody to you know have a successful season, but for the times that you don't, you want to make sure you don't overstress yourself. Over essentially this is a kids game. So you don't want to overstress yourself about it.
Yeah, and he's a young guy, 37 years old, was the Rams offensive coordinator last year. And just, hopefully everything's all right on that end. Hopefully he gets healthy enough to where, he feels great coming back there, which apparently he is if he's going to be coaching Saturday. And if you look at the stats from Saturday, Leary threw for 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, 299 yards, but it just didn't feel like that. You throw for 4 touchdowns, it's still just 28 points, and, EKU scores 17 on you. I hope they can turn it around. Saturday, they've got another easy, they got a MAC opponent again. They've got Akron. And I don't know if you've seen any Akron, the turnover tire that they have. Have you seen that?
I have not seen it. The turnover tire?
So, you know how the U's got the big U chain, that they use, and then everybody's got to turn over something now. Akron apparently is apparently called the Rubber City or something like that. And after they make a turnover, they put a spare tire on the player's head and they walk around with it. It's the craziest thing.
I mean, if that's what gets the recruits, hey, throw the tire in your head. Yes, that's what gets.
It's different, I'll tell you. Turnover tire. Hopefully, there's no turnover. There's no sight of a turnover tire this Saturday against Kentucky. But we'll see then, I guess. So so another thing Saturday. What are your thoughts on Coach Prime out in Colorado?
Man, from what I see, he completely turned the school around, and I don't think many coaches can do what he has done. Not only did he beat TCU at TCU, coming off their championship run that they had last year, um, and then people were still writing them off against Nebraska, which I didn't understand. How can you, if you watch Nebraska play week 1, the one touchdown that they scored, the guy fumbled and then made the play. Like, I don't know how people thought Nebraska was just gonna go to Colorado and beat them.
What has Nebraska done the last 25 years, right? I mean,
so I think Dion is showing what the future of college football is going to be. As soon as a coach gets hired onto a school, go to the transfer portal. It's I won't say it's necessarily pointless to get freshman recruits, because you still need to build your culture. You need guys that are your day ones. But if you can get a guy that went to Alabama and did lose his job, maybe, and then goes to the transfer portal to find a new opportunity. You can get that guy onto your team. Guess what? Bring him to your squad because he's more than likely better than the sophomore you're throwing out there probably in week one. So I
Yeah.
think Dion is going to be a pioneer in this future college game. Definitely with NIL too being a big deal for these schools. Guys are going to that transfer portal and they're going to find the best situation for them. And I think Dion, it's easy to side with Dion because he's been there, done that as far as the whole professional. He's played, NFL, baseball, like he's done it all. And if there's anybody to learn from, it is Dion. Definitely if you're a defensive back, that might be DBU in the next few years. Because if I'm raising, a child that's trying to get recruited to play football and he's a defensive back, I'm trying my hardest to get him to Colorado because if there's anybody to learn from, it's Dion. And then he has his son,
Yeah.
Shador. I mean, if he's gonna be throwing for 400 yards a game, like it's gonna be tough to keep up with him. And I have big hopes for this Colorado team. I see a lot of people on the internet saying that they can make it to the playoffs. I think that's a bit of a reach, but they
Mm-hmm.
can definitely. I think they can definitely get a New Year's Bowl. I think that's the ceiling. Get a New Year's Bowl this first year, and bring in more recruits the next year. Then once they got a full year under their belt, maybe we could talk about the playoffs for this squad.
Yeah, and like all Dion will have to do is be like, look at what I did. And then he can go, you see this Travis Hunter over here? Look what I turned him into. That's recruiting like that. I mean, because playing both sides of the ball like that, very impressive. Just an athlete like that. I know he was the
Yeah,
number one player coming out of high school, but still, I mean, he still, Dion still has a little something to do with that too.
yeah.
But
I mean, and also with him playing both sides of the ball, usually when a player can do something like that, they may lack, on one side of the ball and it's really really good on the other one. This
yeah,
guy's a monster. Like he's getting 100 receiving yards on offense and then getting interceptions on defense. Like that is a monster. That is
yeah.
a monster.
Yeah, and I just wonder if there'll be more players, Joe, following in his footsteps there because they see he's doing both. Maybe they could too, but I don't know of many players that can do it at the elite level that Travis Hunter has in the first couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, if you're having the number one pick in the NFL draft and Travis Hunter is available, I'm sorry to tell you, I'm probably choosing Travis Hunter
Oh
because
yeah.
I mean it's that type of talent is it's almost like Otani. The big question is going to be how long
Mm-hmm.
can he do?
Yep.
But honestly, I'm willing to see how long can he do it because he's doing both at a very high level. And if he decides, okay, I don't want to play offense anymore, he's still a hell of a deep defensive back. Like his ball tracking skills are probably in the top 10 of college football right now as far as defensive players. He's the
Oh yeah.
real deal.
And Colorado, they got Colorado State this week, but next week is the big one where they got the prime spot, 3:30 ABC at Oregon.
Mm,
That'll be their first tough test of the season. Curious to see how that goes next week for Coach Prime in Colorado.
yeah,
So
and Bo Nix, them boys are for real too. They beat
yeah,
up on my Texas Tech boys. I got family that's fan of Texas Tech, and they thought they had a shot first half, and Oregon took it right away.
yeah. Bo Nix has been around a little while. He was in the SEC with Auburn, and then he went out to Oregon. And that'll be a tough one for Coach Prime and them. And then they got USC after that. So we're we're going to see where they're at right now early in the season, and uh, you know it's been fun so far, and I think that he'll have a good team, and he's got them motivated. Dion's got them boys motivated to go out there and run through whoever. So, uh, so you mentioned the Texas Rangers earlier. They're still in the wild card hunt. Since the last time we spoke on here, they were in the AL West lead, but
Yeah.
they kind of dropped a little bit there because they were about ready to play the Brewers, and I was like, I need a sweep here. Yeah.
Sorry. Sorry about that one.
Yeah. Well, so there's only 14 games left or something like that, 15. And my Reds, they're still in it too. They're the wild card hunt there. They lost today to Detroit, but there's still a shot for them to jump into that, squeeze into that playoffs. But there's a log jam right there trying to get that last wild card spot. So it'll be interesting to see here the last few weeks how it's going to play out for postseason baseball.
Yeah, when it comes towards the end of September, baseball really gets interesting. It also gets a little tricky because I think the Rangers play Seattle out of these last 14 games. I think we see them like 7 times. So basically, that series defines who will either get the last wild card spot or maybe you can sneak and steal the division back. Because the Astros, I think, lost to the A's twice. I think they lost the series to the A's. So there's still a little bit of hope on getting back at the top of the division. But yeah, man, that Brewers series, man, that was pain. That was pain right there. I was definitely sitting in my room disappointed watching those games.
Yeah, man. I was like, all right, this is, Reds were still, within a shouting distance of the Central, but after that was over with and the Reds went on a losing streak, it's like, all right, we can still get the wild card. We'll just go for the wild card then. It's okay. It'll be all right. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see how that all plays out with baseball winding down, NFL, college football heating up. It's going to be a good few months here for sports.
Yeah, I don't think I asked. You follow a basketball team?
Oh yeah, college or NBA?
Both, actually. I'm sure you're probably a Kentucky guy for basketball, right?
Yeah, I'm a Kentucky basketball fan, and in the NBA, I don't really have a team. I just follow different players. Who's your NBA team?
I mean, come on, we're the Luka Mavericks. Mavericks, man.
uh,
That's the guy.
I kind of thought it was probably the Mavericks, but I didn't know if it might have been San Antonio or Houston.
I hate San Antonio, man. They just somehow can always, every time they're at the lottery, they get the best big man at the time. Like,
Yep,
yeah, man, you get Tim Duncan, Dave Robinson. Now you're getting
Victor.
Victor. Like, come on, man.
Yeah,
That whole NBA lottery system sounds a little funny. Every time
yeah.
it's the top pick, they get the best center.
They're like, yeah, there's a 7-footer coming out of college, and he's one of the best players in the last few years. Let's do the lottery. Oh, the Spurs win it. Yeah, something's awful fishy there with that. Absolutely, but yeah, the NBA will be starting back up here pretty soon too. You think Dallas? How do you think Dallas will do this year?
I mean, we got Kyrie last year, and I, I thought we had maybe a chance of making a run, but man, my big question is Jason Kidd. Can he get the pieces together and have everybody bought in? Because it seemed like nobody bought into what he was preaching last year. Like we couldn't get the right rotations out there. We had Christian Wood, who's now in the Lakers. We didn't even give him minutes. He is probably one of the worst players I've seen on a pick and roll defense. Like he just cannot comprehend when to switch off and go to somebody else on the pick and roll. But I feel like we just didn't put our best players in the right situation last year. I'm hoping that this year we can at least get into that 5 or 6. Because me personally, I don't like the play-in. It's kind of defeats the purpose of an NBA season. Why do we
Mhm.
play 82 games if still towards the end of the year we're gonna miss the playoffs at 7 and 8? But
Yep.
if they can get to the 5-6 range, I think they got a shot. They seen the Warriors last time when they was in the conference finals, and I think that was a good test for Luka to see how it is at the top level. Seeing Steph Curry and the boys do their thing. So if Kyrie, if we don't have any Kyrie drama, because that's always a possibility. Uh,
Oh, I think there's Kyrie drama every season, isn't there?
yeah, I mean, that we can. The Dallas media is pretty fair on the not crucifying players. New York media will call you out on every single thing. So I can see how him and the Nets, that whole fallout. But Dallas media, hopefully nobody, makes Kyrie mad and he go on a tangent and wants to get traded at the All-Star break.
Yeah. Well, speaking of trades in the NBA, Giannis Antetokounmpo requested a trade, and Milwaukee said they're going to try to do whatever they can to make this trade. What do you
Mm.
think about that?
What kind of value can you get for Giannis though? If we're being honest, like how many players in the league can you be like, yeah, we'll take them and a bag of chips for Giannis? Like, there's not much value you can get
No.
in return for Giannis. That's gonna be a tough one.
Yeah.
But I'm sure Milwaukee, the fans are probably panicking right now because that would be terrible news to hear.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, what was Milwaukee before Giannis, and what's Milwaukee going to be after Giannis?
Yeah.
The same. I mean, I don't think that they're going to be, they're going to be struggling again like they was for years before he got there. So interesting development there. Uh, well, Gene, you got anything else?
No, let's have another great weekend of football, and you know, hope hope our Bengals, because I feel like I'm an honorary Bengals fan now. After being
Oh
on
yeah.
the podcast,
Oh yeah.
let's hope our Bengals get the job done against the Ravens, and let's hope the Cowboys get the job done against the Jets.
Yep. And who does Texas have this week? Football.
We have, oh man, I forgot. That's bad. It's a if I remember the spread, it was like -26.5, so we should win.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's not Alabama this week.
yeah. The big test was last week. I think the way the schedule said, we took a little rest game.
Wyoming.
Why? Yeah, okay. See, that's why I couldn't think of the team.
Yeah.
Wyoming. No, we
Right.
should take
Yeah.
Wyoming.
Texas is a 30-point favorite now.
Oh well, yeah, so
Yeah, and I don't
yeah.
think Josh Allen's still quarterbacks for Wyoming, so I think that Texas will probably they'll probably cover that. I'd say. But yeah, so yeah, let's have a good weekend. Hopefully everything's good. And next time we get on here next week, we'll won't have a whole lot of worse for the past week.
Yeah, hopefully both of our baseball teams are in the wild card too.
Yeah, hopefully so. Uh, on Twitter or X, you can find you at Legene53,
Yes, sir.
and then you can find me at Yelling Couch. This has been Yelling from the Couch. Thank you for joining, Gene. We'll see you next time.
Yay!